El primer Congreso Mexicanista, or the first Mexicanist Congress, is an important historical event that took place in Laredo, Texas, 1911. It was a response to the challenges that were being faced by Mexican Americans, especially with racism and discrimination. It marked the beginning of an organized effort to fight for Mexican American rights and cultural preservation. Clemente Hidar, the owner of La Crónica, was a newspaper that reported these news, and they were the ones who invited the OCH, lodge members, Sociedades Mutualistas, Mexican consuls in the state, and Texas Mexican journalists. They also gave a special invitation to women from the area, including Nuevo Laredo, Tamaulipas. They encouraged all Texas Mexicans to send representatives. It all began with segregating the Mexican community from the Anglo communities. They were told where they could work, live, and learn. They were forced to live in separate neighborhoods called colonias. They only got what white people thought they deserved. The homes they lived in were small and falling apart. The schools were no different, segregated and anything but educational. The books they did have were old and torn. They were basically there to learn what their place was in society, which was working in terrible conditions with low pay. They couldn't even get better jobs in factories or restaurants because of what they looked like. The law couldn't protect them. They were treated as second class citizens. They didn't have the same rights as a person who was a natural born citizen. It led them to being hunted, beaten, and killed by white vigilantes. The Congreso wanted to promote cultural and moral values among Mexicans, protect them from the abuse and fight segregation of Mexican students. They wanted the voices of Mexicans and Mexican Americans to be heard. They wanted the same rights as everyone else for their children to have better opportunities. They didn't want their culture, their history, and their language to be taken from them. Their identity was being stripped from them, and they took a stand in solidarity to help better their communities. Women's rights were a huge topic because women wanted to be a part of the political change. One of the main outcomes was the Liga Femenil Mexicanista, the Mexican Women's League, which was led by Jovita Hidar. The Mexican Women's League organized and helped the Mexican community in so many ways. They gave food and clothing to those in need and raised money for poor families. They opened schools where children could attend and have a proper education. It is one of the first known efforts of Mexican women coming together for a social and political cause. Jovita Hidar saw firsthand the terrible conditions Mexican American students had to learn in. The curriculum didn't include their history or heritage. She stated, Mexican children in Texas need an education, but if they are taught the biography of Washington but not Hidalgo, the exploits of Lincoln but not Juarez, that child will be indifferent to his heritage. She soon quit, frustrated by not being able to help them, so she turned to journalism. She began writing for her father's paper, La Crónica, advocating for women's rights and highlighting discrimination against children and poor working conditions. During the Mexican Revolution, she traveled into Mexico as a military nurse with the revolutionary forces, joining La Cruz Blanca, the White Cross. It's a medical group similar to the Red Cross. When she came back to the U.S., she began working at another newspaper, El Progreso. While she was there, the U.S. president ordered for it to be shut down because they had criticized his choice to send troops to the border. Jovita stood at the doorway defending the right to freedom of the press, but they came back another day and shut it down. Her fearlessness didn't end there. She continued to use journalism to advocate for Mexican and Mexican American rights. She also continued to fight for what was right and against discrimination. Her activism gained widespread recognition, and her legacy is honored through her inclusion in the American Women's Quarter program. The program celebrates women who have helped the country in different ways. Her quarter shows a portrait of her with her hands clasped in front of her chest. Her body is made of words that highlight her biggest accomplishment and the newspaper she wrote. El primer Congreso Mexicanista was a defining moment in Mexican American history. It was a critical moment of resistance against racism and inequality. It showed the power of journalism and the power we have when we come together. It helped bring attention to the struggles of Mexican Americans and sparked a movement for civil rights and community support. It worked to protect people from discrimination, promote education, and preserve Mexican culture. One of the most significant impacts was encouraging Mexican American women to get involved in social and political causes, which hadn't been common before. El Congreso laid the foundation for future generations to continue advocating for our culture, equality, and justice. It helped create a sense of unity, pride, and political activism that continues to shape the Mexican American experience today. Even today, when we are faced with acts of hatred and discrimination against our raza, we come together to fight against it. I'll leave you with another one of Jovita Idar's quote. The only way to make progress is to fight for the rights of those who are oppressed. Some questions I would ask you guys is, how will the Congress be seen as a reaction to the way Mexican Americans were treated as outsiders in American society? And what can we learn from the Congress about how organizing and activism can fight against racism today? Do you think the topics talked about at the Congress are still important in today's discussion about race, identity, and equality? What is the lasting impact of the Mexican Women's League on future generations of Mexican American women? Thank you.